All right, welcome everyone to this class on Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers, as is known. Again, want to welcome everyone to this class on Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers, as it is known. We are holding by chapter 2, Mishna 14. This is going to be part 4, and there will be a part 5, part 6, part 7, I'm sure. And we're still working our way through this idea, what Rebbe Eliezer said, right? What is the best way? Or go out and discern which is the evil path a person should distance themselves from. Rebbe Eliezer says an evil eye, right? So speaking about this last number of weeks. And I want to mention here, we saw before that the previous Mishnah, Mishnah 13, what do we say? Previous Mishnah, we said what's a good thing to go after, right? Go out and discern which is a good path. So now we're saying, go out and discern which is an evil path. Now, an evil path over here, you might say, well, it's just the opposite of a good path. So maybe just do the opposite. No. So we spoke about that, right? But there's an idea over here, very interesting idea, that let's say, we have an obligation trying to overcome bad character traits, right? Bad character traits. That's our obligation. But we fail, right? At a certain level, we don't do what we're supposed to do. We may even do worse things, etc. So there's a question over here. What if a person doesn't acquire good character traits? Yeah, they fail, right? Different levels. So if they fail, they consider it righteous. Right? You're gonna say, my catcher. What's the connection to being righteous? Right? What's the idea? In other words, if a person's perfect, they do everything they're supposed to do, it should be righteous. We say no one's ever been in the world, never sinned. Right? The only handful of people who've ever walked the face of the earth and only died because of the sin of Adam and Eve, right? From eating from the tree. Okay. So we have a handful of individuals. So you're going to say, but everybody sins. Some more, some less. Hopefully some very less. But essentially people sin. So people sin. Right? If people sin, what would I say? They can't be righteous. Right? That's what I would say. Why? Because being righteous, what's the definition? What would be our definition? Our definition of someone who's righteous is somebody that doesn't sin. That's what we might say. But here we could say, someone who doesn't keep proper character traits, doesn't acquire them, doesn't mean they're not good. Doesn't mean they're inherently evil. Right? They're not doing what they should be. Yeah, so that's everybody. Everybody does things they shouldn't do. Some more, some less. But at the end of the day, what if a person, even if they don't acquire good character traits, are they considered righteous if they do what they're commanded to do? Catch 22. Catch 22 over here. Yeah, why do I say catch 22? Very simple. Because we just said, if a person doesn't do what they're supposed to do, they don't acquire good character traits, then what would I say? I would say they can't be righteous. Again, does not acquiring good character traits, does that make them evil? Doesn't necessarily make a person evil, right? What it does is, first of all, we're for sure not perfect. That's true. But at the same time, just because the person has perfected or acquired good character traits does not necessarily mean they're evil. Now, we all have what to work on. We want to acquire good character traits. But what about someone who's keeping what they should? They keep what they're commanded. Could they be righteous? Why not? In other words, they're doing what God said. It doesn't mean they have the greatest character traits, okay? Right? Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect over here. Right? So bottom line, if that's true, then what? Then I would say that a person could be considered righteous. Yeah, by doing what they're commanded to do. Now, that doesn't sound so good. Why doesn't it sound so good? It doesn't sound so good because we're assuming they're doing what they're supposed to do, but they're lacking somehow. What are they lacking? Good character traits. Does that mean they don't have any good character traits? No. Doesn't mean they have all bad character traits. No. Person could be anywhere in the middle. But if that's true, then a person can be doing what God says, but not acquire good character traits. It's not necessarily a contradiction. Now, at first glance, someone's going to say, come on, if you're not acquiring good character traits, you're not righteous. You're not righteous. And not only that, but a person's not going to understand what they're lacking. They totally won't understand. So therefore, as we mentioned last week, person doesn't use their mind for good things. They'll end up having an evil eye. They won't help others, right? We spoke a lot about that. Now let's go back, because there's a fundamental question here. There's a fundamental question that someone here asks, right? And now we're going to see. Said before, if you don't acquire good character traits, you're not going to be considered righteous. Okay. So who's considered righteous today? Right? Or in any generation. Yeah. So it's hard to put a finger on, something that's a little more esoteric. Something that's really is hard to put in words. Right? Someone you think of as being totally righteous. Yeah, we think of them as being perfect. They never make mistakes. They always greet people with a smile. They never get angry. They're always the first to help others. I don't know, we can make a list. Make a list of 20 things what potentially make someone righteous. Yeah. Let's see if I find it here. Well, in the Shmona Esrei of Rosh Hashanah that we say on Rosh Hashanah, there's a distinction. There's a distinction of someone who's straight, right? I think it mentions there about righteousness also. Let me just see if I find it here. 1 second. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, so in the second paragraph in the Shmona Esrei of Rosh Hashanah, we have three paragraphs at the beginning are always the same. 3 paragraphs at the end are always the same. And the middle blessings are different. Right? Middle blessings are different on Shabbos, middle blessings are different on any festival, etc. So in the second paragraph, it's really the 5th paragraph of the Shemona Esrei of Rosh Hashanah, it states like this. What do we say? We say, so too the righteous will see and be glad. The upright will exalt, and the devout will be mirthful with glad song. Iniquity will close its mouth, or wickedness will evaporate like smoke when you remove evil's domination from the earth. Now, there's a question here. Who are we referring to? It says the righteous will see, they'll be glad, and the upright will exalt, and the devout will be mirthful with glad songs. So you got 3 types of people. People that are righteous, people that are devout, and people that are upright and people who are devout. Oh, what's the difference? Right, in English, it sounds like the same. Someone who's righteous, you'll tell me they're upright. They don't lie, etc. They always tell the truth. And someone who's devout, you tell me they're pious, right? They're very religious. Okay, so what's the difference? What's the difference in this terminology? So the righteous are those that obey the commands of God, even though they may be strongly tempted not to, right? We all have an evil inclination. Or they may not understand the justice of God's way. Someone who's upright is so perfect and never question God's will. The devout are those who seek to serve God by doing more than the minimal. They go beyond the minimal what they're supposed to do according to the law. So the righteous here, who are we talking about? We're talking about people who keep Torah mitzvahs, obviously. They obey what God says, but they don't understand justice. Now you're going to say, nobody understands justice. Nobody understands God's justice. Yeah. But it would seem from that, someone who's even considered righteous will question justice. Not saying, God forbid, God's wrong. He doesn't know what he's doing. And God is cruel. Right? We're not going that far. But what's he saying? He's saying, I have questions. I have questions how it works. Yeah. Someone who's upright, they don't have questions. They don't have questions how it works. Yeah, they're doing God's will. They have no issues. Someone who's devout is even going beyond the limit what he has to do. Yeah, different levels. Different levels. So over here, what do we say? We're talking about someone who's righteous. Someone who's righteous who does what God commands. It doesn't say he's perfect. It doesn't say he makes blessings, and he always has the right intention. It doesn't say that. Here we're talking about someone who's considered righteous, even if they don't acquire good character traits. Now you're going to tell me that person's evil. That's what some people would say. That person is evil. Why? They don't have good character traits. Yeah. If they don't have good character traits, what's my assumption? They're not good. Simple assumption. But at the same time, no. Because someone who's righteous, we're making assumptions here. We're going to assume someone who's righteous has everything they need spiritually. They never question God. They never make, they don't make so many mistakes. They're good to other people. They have a lot of good character traits, blah, blah, blah. That's what we would assume. Yeah. Here we're saying someone, as we said by Rosh Hashanah, someone who's righteous does what God says, does what they're commanded to do. They're not devout. Devout's a higher level. They're not upright. That's a higher level. But we don't like to be considered righteous, even in a lower level. So it seems the definition of someone who's righteous is someone who keeps God's commands. Doesn't mean they have the greatest character traits. That could be all of us. We all don't have good character traits. Some people have better, some people worse. But there's a certain criteria here. One thing is, you have to do what you're commanded to do. You want to be devout, you don't question. That's considered devout. Some people may say that's not devout. Someone who doesn't question is dead. Maybe, God forbid, they're brain dead. They do things because they have a leap of faith. Maybe. Obviously, we don't hold that. Obviously, we think someone who doesn't question accepts what God does, even if we caused it or not. They accept what God does. Like what happened to Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu. They were taken because they tried to do something they weren't commanded to do, even though they thought it was such an auspicious time. So what does the Torah say about Aaron? Vayidom Aaron. What does Aaron say? Nothing. He accepted the Gezar Din. He accepted the decree. We're going to speak more about that tomorrow. My class in the book of Leviticus chapter 16. We're going to hit an aspect of that tomorrow. The end of the chapter, if I get there. We should get there, hopefully. So, Aaron over here is quiet. At a time, you'd be shocked out of your gourd. I'm going to be quiet. Further than his loss, his two righteous sons. 2 out of his 4 righteous sons. At the most auspicious time when the tabernacle is being put up. So without going into all that, that's not the point. The point is that's greater than righteousness. Because we said before, being someone devout, you don't question. It's a divine decree. Now, if a person would question, doesn't make you a heretic. Right? Let's make that clear. Right? A person could have claims. Why this happened? Could have difficulty understanding why this happened. Could you be righteous and have this question? Some may say no. Some will say if you want to be righteous, you don't question. Regardless of, God forbid, whatever the decree is. Right? Some would say, it's not ours to question. Period. There was a discussion among Rabbanim, among rabbis after World War II. There was a whole discussion why the Holocaust happened. So some wanted to say, because there's a lot of simulation into marriage. Some wanted to say immorality. Some wanted to say people didn't protest desecration of Shabbos. Right? A lot of different reasons. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky, a blessed memory, he was head of the base in London way back. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky put his hand on the table and put his fist on the table, told everyone to be quiet. And he said, it's not for us to question. We don't know the ways of the Rabbanu Shalom. We don't know the way God runs the world. It was a decree. That's it. We don't know. We can't fathom it. We don't understand. That's not a leap of faith. All these other reasons could be possibly why. So what? Right? It's not for us to question. That's a much higher level. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky didn't say, hey, heretics, be quiet. He didn't call them heretics. They were trying to understand why this could have happened. They're not questioning why God did it. You know, the fact that, oh, it's not fair, this, that. They said it must be something the Jewish people did. Okay. Cheskel Abramsky said, you don't question God over here. It was a divine decree. We can't fathom what God does. That was Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky's answer. So decrees are made, things happen. And when a person dies, you have an obligation to mourn for. Mother, father, sister, brother, God forbid, a child or a spouse. Before the person is buried, what's the blessing you make? You make the blessing Dayana Emet. God is the true judge. Why do you have to make that blessing? Very hard blessing to make. Whether you like the person or not, doesn't matter. Hard blessing to make anyway. Why? Because you're acknowledging God's the one who caused it. Life and death are in the hands of God. Someone got killed, this happened, that happened. God used them as a messenger. But at the end of the day, God took them. In whatever way he took them. Whether, they were very old, they got sick, got killed in a car accident, who knows? Any number of things. God can take a person. What's the bottom line? The person died. Because God took them. I remember telling somebody, asking somebody, such and such a person died. I asked them. I said, what they died from? The person looked at me and said, what do you care what they died from? God took them. It was their time to go. Some earlier, some later, whatever it is. So we see terrible things. Says Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky, you got to pray. You got to learn better. A lot of things we need to do to make sure these things don't happen. Tragedy, terrorism, all these things. But at the end of the day, who are we to say God did this and did that for this reason? We don't know. Nobody knows. There are certain things, rabbis say, well, this happened because we're not careful in the laws of modesty. We're not careful in other things. You're going to say, how do they know? Did God speak to them? There's no prophecy today. Except for little children or imbeciles. We don't have prophecy today. The lowest form of prophecy, true, is Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, which very few people have in this generation. But even so, we don't know. But so people say, how can a rabbi say this happened for this reason or that reason? Because there are certain things God hates. That Torah makes very clear. Idolatry, immorality, right? Number of things God cannot stand. So we can say in general, if a tragedy happens, it could be any number one of these things. Now, how do they know? Because God's wrath only comes out certain times. It can come out at other times, no question. But it come out in a nasty way because of certain things we do. And we know the Torah tells me many times what God hates. Right? Two biggest things are immorality and idolatry. Now, could other tragedies, God forbid, be caused by other things? Sure. But we don't know. Nobody knows. I think sometimes things are a little more obvious, depending where it happened. Give an example. If there's an earthquake, God's in charge of earthquakes and all of nature. So if there's an earthquake, the epicenter is in a place of total immorality. If that's where the epicenter is, that's not too hard to figure out. The God said, okay, I can't stand this. I'm going to knock this out. Right? I'm going to make an earthquake here. I'm going to make someone shoot up a whole bunch of people in Sin City. There are reasons. Because God hates immorality. Why doesn't God do it more often and this and that? God does what he wants. He hasn't told me. He hasn't made it known. When he's going to strike, how it's going to happen. But God hates certain things. So at a certain point, God says, okay, I've had enough. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to show the world. I think it's a coincidence, a number of months ago, freezing cold weather. Tremendous earthquake hits Turkey. Doesn't it Israel? Israel not that far. In the middle of winter, bad weather, can't search for people. It's a tremendous Gazar Din. Tremendous judgment. For what reason? Could be any number of reasons. But that's judgment. So someone can keep the letter of the law. And we'll get back to the question in a second. Someone can keep what they're commanded to do, right? That's what we call someone who's righteous. They keep what they're commanded to do. Now, by that statement, what does that say about who they are? You tell me they must be pretty good people. Why? Because most people don't keep what they're commanded to keep. We always say it, 14 million Jews don't know anything about their own religion. They're not doing what they're commanded to do. Think that a lot of these people have good character traits? Probably not. Maybe they have a few here and there. But someone who's holding by doing what they're commanded to do, that's already huge. That's already huge. But the question is, okay, let's hit the question now. So the question is, how do you know you're righteous? Let me ask like this. Why should a person think they're righteous? You're going to say, what's the problem? Why can't a person feel good about themselves? After all, we just said there are 13 million Jews, or 13.5 million Jews, don't know anything. They don't know Kriyat Shema. They don't know Aleph. Compared to them, we're totally righteous. Because we're doing what God commanded, the best of our ability. Okay? Well, let me ask. Who are we comparing to? An 18-year-old kid mentioned this before, the story before. Tells me, Rabbi, I don't have to listen to your Musar. I'm holding better 95% world Jewry, so cut me some slack. Yeah? That's a pretty obnoxious thing to say. Pretty, person big Baal Gaiva here thinks he's so great. He's holding better 95% of world Jewry. Now, let's say I would agree. Let's say even God would agree. Let's say God would agree. Who are you comparing himself to? Right? Here a person saying I'm doing better than most Jews. Okay. Let's say it's true. I'll be generous. I'm in a relatively good mood. Let's say he's right. But he's comparing himself to a generation of people that the most important question is ketchup, mustard, or relish on my hot dog. These people are basically bona fide being brain dead. They're doing things just based on what their desire tells them. Okay. So if that is true, you're comparing yourself to Sodom and Gomorrah. Great. Great. You're comparing yourself to who? You're comparing yourself to a generation that can't learn a lick. They don't know what's upside down or what's up, what's down. They don't know anything about spirituality, connecting to God, making blessings, knowing how to read. So he's comparing to. Oh, what about other people in that generation? Same generation or much greater than you? Yeah. They have a lot more knowledge. What about them? Compared to them, you're not even an ant. You learned the one tractate of Talmud? No. You're going through the entire Torah with Rashi? No. Right? I can make a whole list there of things the person hasn't done compared to others in that generation. So he's comparing to. So for our generation, Kaufman would say Psalms chapter 34. The verse talks about not speaking Lashon Hara. The prohibition against Lashon Hara. Guard your tongue from evil, he lives from speaking etc., etc. Then it says, stay away from evil and do good. Now, I'm going to tell you what's my interpretation, and you can take this with a grain of salt. What's my interpretation of that? You want a portion of the world to come. According to King David, stay away from evil. That's this generation. Stay away from evil. If you stay away from evil in this generation, pretty much you got a guarantee of having a portion of the world to come. But then King David says, go out and do good. So Kaufman would say that's a bonus. For this generation, that's a bonus. You want a portion of the world to come, stay away from evil. Okay. That's already a huge thing. Huge for this generation. Doing good, that's extra. That's like a bonus. You're going to say, this generation? Yeah. This generation. Because, this generation, we get distracted very easily. We're into other things that are a lot more fun than Torah mitzvahs. We get distracted. So therefore, if at least we're staying away from evil, that's already 90% of the game. Doing good? Oh, that's a bonus. You're going to say, so low? Yeah. That's what this generation's holding. Doesn't mean we don't have to try, we don't have to work hard, right? Well, let me say it like this. Nobody should be asking this question. There's a fundamental flaw in this question. What's the fundamental flaw? Without demolishing ourselves and not having any self-esteem, what is the fundamental flaw with the question? The fundamental flaw is, why do you want to even think you're righteous? You gotta say, what do you mean? Why can't I think I'm righteous? What's the problem? What's the problem with making such a statement? Right? What's the question behind it? The obvious question behind it is, who are you? I'm not saying the person asked the question in general. Who are you to even ask the question? I'm righteous compared to who? I could be here till tomorrow, easily. Easily. And I could pinpoint 20 things, 30 things, 50 things that you'll say that after going through each one and saying, yeah, well, I had a problem with this. Yeah, I had a problem with that. Yeah, I had a problem with another thing, right? By the end of what I'm done, destroying this idea, you're going to feel not even greater than an ant. That's not the question. That should never be a question. Am I righteous? Who are you? Am I, compared to what? Compared to everyone around you, you're the greatest of the generation. So, people are idolatry. Yeah, people worship cows. You're greater than them. Okay, but what are you comparing to? We're not righteous here. Very few people are going to be considered righteous. But didn't we just define righteousness as what? It's doing what God commands. True. I'm thinking of a different definition. There are a lot of people, quote unquote, who do what God says and keep his mitzvahs. Yeah. They go to synagogue every day. They make blessings. They pray. They do other things. They do chesed, acts of loving kindness, all kinds of things. Very good. Very good. I would venture to guess sometimes, or maybe many times, just what we said. Their character traits not up to snuff. Not up to snuff. They're not good people. And I'm not saying everybody by any stretch. There are plenty of good people out there. See, this is a good point. Because I want to make sure people understand you don't ask these questions. Because that's assuming you're on a level which you're not. That's all of us. I should think I'm righteous compared to who? Like I said, I could be here till tomorrow. I can mention 20 things, 40 things, 50 things. You won't feel like you're righteous. You might feel you do more than other people and you're on the right track. Okay. That's very good. You have to have self-esteem. That's very true. But this borders on guidance. This borders on being conceited, thinking, why can't I think I'm righteous? It's not the first time I've heard this. I've heard other people say other things that are off the mark, according to Torah. Well off the mark. We have to think on a daily basis, I'm not doing enough. I'm not up to snuff. Without breaking ourselves. I have to think I have a long way to go. We have to be able to say, when are my actions going to be like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Can you say that? I don't know, anybody can say that. But that's our obligation. We want to reach higher levels. So are we righteous compared to who? We can be doing mitzvahs. We can be doing mitzvahs, God forbid, by doing it by rote. Just by doing an automatic pilot. Because we have to do it. We're afraid we're going to find out forever if we don't. So let me ask, does that make you righteous? We're saying righteousness means I'm doing what God commands. Okay, in that sense, very good. If that's the case. Right? But we threw out a very good question. And the question was that if I'm lacking proper character traits, right? If I've not acquired, let's say better, a number of good character traits, are they considered righteous? So someone who's righteous does what God commands. Okay. That's a big thing in this generation. I would agree. Because most people are not doing what God commands. But you see, when I think of righteousness, I think of, much higher levels. Here we're saying they don't acquire good character traits. So I would ask, if that's true, how can you be considered righteous? Do we say you have to acquire all good character traits? Only some of them? There can be people that know a lot of Torah mitzvahs, but the character traits are off the rails, meaning bad. Somebody like that you can't learn Torah from, no matter how bright they are. It's a contradiction in terms. So, if a person doesn't have good character traits, so we're saying over here, you're going to be lacking in the next world. And you won't even understand what you're lacking because you won't want to help others. You just want to be selfish. And we spoke about this, right? People want to help themselves. And if someone needs help, what do you want from me? Yeah. Someone told me on the way to synagogue today, an Orthodox Jew, religious from birth. Someone made the following statement. They said, they've been contacted by family members, that need help trying to pay tuition for their kids. Yeah, school tuition. Now, this person is not a person of means. I mean, whatever, they're retired. They're not a person of means, per se. But that wasn't even the question. The question, I was thinking was, okay, the person was, sorry, let me see what he answered. So the person said they're barking up the wrong tree. Like, why are they coming to me for help? Like, I've already done that, been there. They were my kids. Let them deal with it. Yeah, so you can look at it a few ways. You could look at it and say, well, if the person would have said, I'd love to help. What can I do? Fixed income. I can only do so much, this and that. Okay. They can't help. But they'd love to help if they could. That's not what the person said. The person said, why are they coming to me? Now, they didn't clarify the statement. And I didn't call them on it. Yeah, it wasn't my business to call them on it. I understood what they meant to a certain extent. They're like, I've done this. I had to do it for my kids. Let them work it out. They're not saying it's easy. Yeah. What did I take out from it? He can't help. I mean, I know they can't help. But see, if they would have said, I really wish I could have. It hurts me that, they're reaching out to me and, and they're having difficulty and blah, blah, blah. That's not what was said. Basically, what was said was they're barking up the wrong tree. Comes along the Mishna over here and says that's a bad eye. That's an evil eye over here. Because if a person doesn't use their mind for good things, as we said, you have an evil eye, you won't want to help others. Now, this person may think, judge unfavorably. Maybe he'll think, I can't do anything anyway. There's nothing I can do. I'm on limited income. What can I do? But see, it didn't come out that way. Could be that's what the person meant. They didn't say it. Right? I know the person a long time. I don't think I know so well. I know enough, I would say, about the person in general. He's not a mean person. Not a miser by any stretch. He's got no money. He doesn't have a lot. Okay? But you see, there's a difference of how you say it. If it would have said, yeah, they had family members come to me, whatever, and, life is hard and this and that. I really feel bad. I really wish I could help them. I'm not in a position to help them. Maybe I can get other people trying out, whatever. But they didn't say that. I'm not saying the person's cruel, per se. But the person basically said they're barking up the wrong tree. Now, again, that's what the person might have meant. That's what they might have meant. Now, would that person never help? And there's that. I can't answer. I'm not in their shoes. But we're pointing out over here that what? If a person doesn't have the right mindset, they won't help others. They're like, listen, I did what I had to do. They'll have to do what they have to do. But why are they coming to me? So I was a little bit taken aback, in the sense that, okay, it's one thing to say, I wish I could help. I don't have the means to help. Okay. Right? A lot of people probably in that situation. Or they could say, yeah, I do have the means to help, but I'm not going to help. They have to, they have to figure it out themselves. I don't want everyone coming knocking on my door, this and that. I can also hear that to a certain extent. But here, deep down, I know this I can't answer. Deep down, does the person really don't want to help people? Or not? Maybe in other things it could help, other things it couldn't help. But see, somebody doesn't have good character traits. That's probably all of us that we have to work on. Yeah, if they don't have good character traits in general, then how can they be considered righteous? Because righteousness is about doing what God commands. Do you do what God commands or not? You'll say yes and no. It's either, I do the best of my ability, some things I don't do, some things I do better, some worse. But let's say for the most part you do. Okay. Okay, very good. Well, let's say you got a problem with character traits. Does that mean you're righteous? We can be considered righteous just by doing what God says. That's not being upright. That's not being considered devout. Right? Being righteous is a lower level. That's how we define it. So in that sense, you can say, I'm considered righteous. I'm doing what God wants. Well, let's analyze the statement. To me, the statement's problematic for a number of reasons. Right? The main reason being is that a person should never be happy where they're holding. So this question shouldn't even come up. I think I'm righteous. Right? In God's eyes, does you really think I'm righteous? We could think, I'm trying to go on the right path. I'm trying to do the right thing. But again, look in the mirror and be honest. Be honest. Before you go to sleep, what did you accomplish during the day? How did you interact with others? How did you pray? Right? If you're a Jew and you have an obligation. How did you pray? How did you interact with others? Did you learn? Did you make blessings properly? Where were your thought patterns? I could ask 100 questions. And I guarantee they're going to, each question is going to pierce a person's heart. Pierce it very strong. Because you're going to realize what you're lacking. We're all lacking. If that would be the case, we'd never get out of bed. Nobody would ever get out of bed. I'm very good at this. I'm sure a lot of people could pinpoint errors we make and things wrong that we do. Yeah. Easily do it. Easily do it. So tell people, think about it. Think about what you did during the day. For this generation, yeah, it'd be very easy to say we're righteous. Very easy. We do things we shouldn't do. Compared to everybody else. Compared to, to Sodom and Gomorrah, yeah, we're totally righteous. Totally righteous. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have self-esteem. Doesn't mean we shouldn't feel good about what we do and where we're holding. Doesn't mean we should be satisfied where we're holding. Being good, feeling good about where we're holding doesn't mean we're conceited. If a person's able to, hear a class, learn Torah and this and that, they should be kissing the ground every day. They should be ecstatic. Those other people, what are they doing? How are they fulfilling their time? Wasting it. Just doing one desire, the next desire, the third desire. So we should be thankful for that. We should have self-esteem just based on that compared to everybody else. You can't let it go to your head. I'm not saying that's what the base of the question is, right? But you can't let it go to your head and say, look, I should be considered righteous. Again, compared to people who don't keep anything, I would agree. We would be considered the righteous generation. The problem is, who are we comparing to? We're comparing to nobody. The people, questions going to ask is mustard or ketchup or relish on my hot dog. That's where they're holding. Yeah, so you got to be careful with such a question because on the one hand, you have to have self-esteem. It's true. We should all have self-esteem. We should all feel good about where we are and what we're doing. But we should never feel satisfied. We should never say, I'm happy where I am. That is bad, spiritually speaking. That's bad. I've heard people say it. I'm good. That's the kiss of spiritual death. The bunch of people I know like that, spiritually, they're finished. Once you say, I'm happy being mediocre, it's over. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, but your life is ruined. Ruined. Because you're not striving in Torah mitzvahs. That's what happens. Now, follow-up question is, person has questions. They want to learn. They want to know if it's true. They want to know the meaning behind it. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Even though 80% of the Torah doesn't, we don't understand what it, it doesn't make sense logically. Doesn't mean we don't have to try and understand. That's true. That's what we do every day. Try and understand what the Torah wants, what the Torah says, what my obligation is to myself, to others. Right? We ask questions all the time. Questions are good. Right? That's not a problem because we want to understand. We want to understand to the best of our ability. But we have to realize one thing, like we said before, like we mentioned by Aaron Cohen, right? His two sons die at an unbelievable time. And the Torah says, Vayidomar, Aaron himself is quiet. Quiet means it's a divine decree. We keep the Torah because it's a divine decree. Whether we understand it more, we understand it less, it's a divine decree, we got to keep it. Doesn't mean we can't ask questions. Asking questions, for the most part, does not make you a heretic. Does not make you a heretic, depends what type of question. But just try and understand what the Torah says and what's behind the mitzvahs, that's fine. That's fine. We have to realize also, as it says in Pirke Avos, as it says in Ethics for Our Fathers, you have to know your place. We have to know where we're holding. We have to know who we are honestly. And honestly, compared to previous generations, we don't even come to the crust in their toenails. We're nothing compared to them. Okay. And in this generation, very good. We're holding somewhere in a very weak cream puff generation, as I would say. So that's very good. We got to feel good about ourselves. At least, we're trying. We're going in the right direction. That's a huge thing. But to think I'm holding where I need to be holding, that's totally different. That we have a long way to go. Our whole lives. Our whole lives, we have to be thinking I'm not doing enough. When I go to sleep, I should have questions still unanswered. I should go to sleep with a question on my mind. Person doesn't ever want to lose focus. Even if it's hard and we just want to veg and this and that. Very good. We have to know how to do it so we don't get distracted. Yeah, so when it comes to, again, asking questions is good. Someone who's considered, as we said, by Rosh Hashanah, devout. When it comes to, tragedy and other things, they have no questions. They have no questions. Like Rav Cheskel Abramsky said. Divine decree would happen in the Holocaust. We have no questions because we have no questions. God made a decree for whatever reason. Okay? Understanding the mitzvahs and what's behind them is not questioning God. Questioning God's a totally different thing. That's a totally different thing. That you got to be very careful. Very, very careful. Trying to understand what the Torah says. We're all obligated to do that. To the best of our ability. And sometimes the answer is because God said it, and that's it. That's a divine decree. And there are things we just don't understand. And that's okay. That's not a cop-out. Because people say, we have to give me an answer. Well, sometimes there aren't answers. Sometimes it's God said it. We don't have answers. But the ones who say, I need an answer, otherwise they're not going to keep it or whatever, are telling you, I need to be on par with God. God needs to speak to me in my language. I'm going to make God in my own image. What do we call that in the vernacular? Idolatry. A lot of times it's a divine decree, and that's it. And people will not want to admit it because they don't want to keep it. They only want to keep things, quote unquote, make sense to them. Okay. So any little thing doesn't make sense. They don't like the explanation, they won't do. As if to say, if the Torah is given by God, which we agree, they may not agree, but that which we would agree, then who's to say I'm supposed to fathom what he wants in general? Even the rabbis tell me, do this, don't do that, whatever it is, right? Who's to say I'm going to be able to fathom it? I got to keep it anyway, whether I understand it more or less. That doesn't matter. I still have to keep it. So if I still have to keep it, right, someone can say, but doesn't speak to me. So again, their assumption is they should be on the level of God. And if it's a godly book, I should understand it. Or it has to be made known in a way I can process it, or I can change it, or whatever. However it speaks to me. But they're making another wrong assumption. And the other wrong assumption is just because, as we hold, it's written by God, who says I'm supposed to understand it 100% like I'm God himself? That's the problem. That's a huge problem. Because we're not God. And a person who's going to claim without listening to the rabbis, you will not get anywhere in the Torah. You won't understand it. You won't fathom it. It's impossible. It's impossible with our puny brains. Person's going to say, come on. I want to understand. I should be on that level. You're not God. Look at a lot of these divine commands. Don't mix milk and meat. Spoke about this. Kosher meat, kosher milk, put them together, becomes forbidden. Why? Why can't I wear wool and linen together? There are things we're not going to comprehend. Doesn't mean we don't have to try and figure it out. Doesn't mean we don't have to try and understand it. But one thing 100% for sure is we are not God, period. In the book, itself was given over by God to Moses, passed down generation to generation. The fact that God was able to speak to Moses, whatever that speaking was, Moses gave it to us. Why do we think we should be on that level? Because we have egos. What, I can't understand? Look at what the Torah says, many things. Many, many things that we don't fathom, we don't get, that we need to be explained. We need the rabbis come to explain what it means, otherwise we wouldn't get it. So questioning, we don't have a problem with. Questioning is fine. Depends what type of questions. But in general, questions understanding the mitzvah, very good. That's what Torah is. Questioning God, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. We're not here to question God. We're here to do what he says. So it's like we said before, if we do what he says, what's that level called? That level called the right? What's it called? Righteous. Being righteous. But being righteous doesn't mean I'm holding where I need to be holding character-wise, right? I might not be doing good character, have good character traits. But if a person does it, how do they want to help out others? They could be considered righteous because they're doing the right thing and they're going in God's way. They're doing what God wants. Okay, very good. But who's to say they're going to help others if they don't acquire good character traits? Now, it depends what you're going to mean also helping others. Right? We always say help starts at home. Right? Starts with family, starts with your people, this, that. There are other people who want to, they have delusions of grandeur in many ways. They'll help out others, be philanthropic, but their money's going in the toilet. They want to help out Palestinians. Yeah. They want to help out other causes that aren't worth anything, in the Jewish world. All right, it's their choice. But not really helping people that need to be helped. Yeah. But if you want to tell me at least they have something, they're helping others, okay. But if a person has an evil eye, it's worse. These people at least may be doing something. But the vast majority of people, I shouldn't say vast majority, people out there do not want to help others. At all. So not helping others means you have an evil eye. That's what it is. You don't want to help others. So even helping the wrong causes is something. It's not nothing. Right? I think people are going to be shocked. After 120 years, they get upstairs and they were praised in this world because they were philanthropic. They got praised in this world, I don't know, because they helped raise money for, a non-Jewish charity, $100 million or whatever, and they helped do other things, so tremendously praised in this world. To get to the next world, totally different ball game. They're going to see what reality is, what absolute truth is, and they're going to be not too happy. Not too happy. Because they blew it. They did things they shouldn't have done. They helped out the wrong people. Okay, it was their choice. So I would say, people can be convinced, their evil inclination, other things can convince a person to do the wrong thing. I'm just pointing out the evil eye over here means you don't want to help anybody ever. Ever. You don't want to help others in general. But there are people that do have a heart. Or have a heart, as we would say in Boston. They have a heart. It's just they're misguided. So the people that they're going to help or other things they're going to help are, in the bigger scheme of things, they shouldn't be helping. So even if they're helping, I would say that's some level. That's some level here. But the reality is we're talking about people not going to help at all. That's what we're talking about. Right? We're talking about they're not even going to understand what they're lacking. Because if they don't have these good character traits, why'd you help anybody at any time? Could be. Maybe they'll help because they feel guilty. Maybe, who knows? I know someone who was in dire straits, different reasons. Told me once a number of years ago, right? He was in dire straits and he twisted the arm of different people in his family to bail him out, to help him. Okay. They didn't want to help in general. Yeah, but he had to do other things in order to get them to help. Okay. So I don't know all the details. I'm not judging here. I'm just pointing out. There could have been a lot of other factors going on. Okay. When you hear something like that, I'm just saying it's only one side of the argument. But when you hear somebody say you had to twist their arms to help me, fine, they decided to help. They'll get credit for helping. But it sounds bad. Sounds really bad. It's like I had to force them this, that, and finally decided to bail me out. All right. I mean, there could be other reasons why they didn't want to. That's not the point. But if someone had the opportunity to help somebody, right, this is where it comes in. They have the opportunity, they look the other way. Or they justify it in different ways. I'll say, I'd love to help, but I've gotten burned before. Okay? It's an excuse. In other words, if a person wanted to help, let's say they were of means, and they wanted to help, could they help? They could help. Now, they may be convinced in other ways why not to. But I'm pointing in a case where they could. They could help. But they make excuses why they don't want to. Okay. Yeah, so at the end of the day, they don't really want to. They're just making excuses why. Now, what's going to happen to them in the next one? Even if they helped other people, let's say. In this case, they're in big trouble. Because God's going to say, but you could have helped. 100% you could have helped. You didn't think it was important enough. You wanted to teach the person a lesson. You wanted to X, Y, and Z. And we convince ourselves of things all the time that aren't good. We make excuses a lot. We mentioned this many times. Okay. But imagine you're now in front of God. And he's telling you, you could have done this. You had the ability. You didn't want to. What's the person going to say? Now they know absolute truth. They see absolute truth. What are they going to say? That's part of the cleansing process. That's part of what Gehenna is. They're going to be so embarrassed. If they give me another chance, they're going to admit they made a mistake, serious mistake. That's part of repentance. That's part of the cleansing process of Gehenna. Embarrassment. Should be embarrassed. Should be more embarrassed in this world. They had an opportunity to help, and they didn't. They got convinced of other things. So there are people, we mentioned this many times before. Older people, they don't want to do other things. Why? They don't know what's going to be tomorrow, right? King Solomon says, you don't know what today's going to bring, tomorrow's going to bring. True. Right? So at the end of your life, you've got to financially plan. How are you going to live? What happens if you need an operation? What happens this, that? True. Very, very true. You got to be careful. Okay. But see, that also shows a lack of emunah. Lack of faith in God over here. You got to say, well, I'm going to live to 102, so I need this amount of money, I'm going to this and that. Again, I'm not saying you spend it for, you spend it, and you waste it. You say, oh, I'm going to have this one, that one, the other one, you don't have anything left for yourself. Right? I'm not saying that. Then people will say, well, if I have this one, then I have to help that one, and how much can I really do? And, whatever. People make all kinds of calculations. Some based on reality, a lot not. Why do I say not based on reality? Because they don't have this idea of emunah bitachon, and that God runs the world. Now, I just read a story earlier. Interesting. Somebody had a property they were trying to move. For years, wasn't going. it wasn't going. So they're at this conference, and they're hearing a whole bunch of classes about giving 10%, right? Giving Meister, whatever. And the person thought, well, maybe it's not so careful, giving 10%. So we donated a certain amount to charity on the spot. Yeah. Within a few months, that building sold for 100 times more than he gave for charity. I don't know how much money he made off the deal, whatever it was. He had a building he couldn't sell. Couldn't sell. And he felt it was because he didn't give enough charity. Yeah. You never lose giving charity, giving 10%. You never lose. Right? Unless you're totally in the red every month. Okay. So, you just make a calculation. When you have the money, you pay it. Right? But you don't have an obligation to pay it when you're in the red every month. Yeah. But without going into all that, this person said, okay, on the spot, he took on, okay, what I'm going to do, give him this amount of money. And within not even a few months, the amount that the person gave was 100 times more. He got 100 times more plus another $233. So God gave him a bonus. Yeah. Because he understood maybe he's lacking in a certain area, and that's what he did. But woe to people who have the opportunity, could help others, they don't. Yeah. Or let's say they help, but they don't help enough. They say, this is the amount I can give. Okay, so very good. Very good. They help out. Right? Not going to say not, let's say. But they're really going to give him more. They feel they can't. They feel that. Will they get credit for doing that? Yes. 100%. They'll get credit. But they don't get all the credit because they could have done more. We can always do more. Right? That's why this question is a moot point over here. Right? Not about whether I'm righteous or not righteous. Bottom line is we're never happy where we are. Doesn't mean we should be depressed. It means we got to work hard every single day. Reach higher and higher and higher levels. That's what we have to do. That's our obligation. But if a person has bad character traits, doesn't mean they can't be righteous per se. I would have thought not that way. But if you tell me they keep Torah mitzvahs, but they still have bad character traits, it can happen. Probably all like that. But that's going to stop a person from giving. That's the whole point. If a person has an evil eye, doesn't want to give it all. But that doesn't mean you're not keeping Torah mitzvahs. It means you're very weak in this area. That's what it means. But somebody else asks, I want to deal with this. You put so much in to grow spiritually. How much you help others be closer to God? So I'll say like this. I'll say what happened to Ori Zohar. Rabbi Ori Zohar, blessed memory. Rabbi Ori Zohar was probably the greatest Baal Tshuva returning to Judaism, the most famous. He was a actor, Israeli actor, like top of his game, and he left everything for Torah mitzvahs. Left everything. Became religious, etc. And what did he do? All he wanted to do after the fact was sit and learn. And people hid him away, so he wouldn't get involved in, I'd say, doing outreach and other things. Yeah, until he was ready. And even when they felt he was ready, he still wanted to sit and learn. But this organization, kind of missionary work and working with, non-religious Jews and bringing non-religious Jews back, eventually, he went out and helped them. But this is after many, many, many years of learning. So someone there points out, you put a lot of, effort in spiritually. What about drawing others, closer to God? So there's different opinions how it should be done. Some would say, when you first start learning, you have a certain level of knowledge, even a basic knowledge, you can start teaching others. And if people ask you questions you can't answer, so you send them to somebody who can answer them, right? You just say, I don't have all the answers. It's a good question. I'll get back to you, whatever. So People shouldn't be afraid of that. People definitely shouldn't be afraid of that. At the same time, others would say that, yeah, you want to do that on the side a little bit, get, a certain grounding in your knowledge. How much knowledge? Again, this is a difference of opinion. This is a difference of opinion. I've heard some say, which I disagree with, but I've heard, and I do understand the mentality behind it, right? And they'll say, if you know something, you can teach it over to someone else. And Jews don't know anything, you can give them over anything. You can teach them something. So you should be active straight away. Yeah, others are going to say no. Others are going to say focus on your learning. You want to do that, as a small side thing, okay, right? What my Rebbe told me, I had this desire to go out and teach and this and that. He grounded me, literally, and said, sit and learn. You want to do this on the side a little bit here and there, okay. But he ingrained in my head, I don't want you to be like these other so-called Mickey Mouse rabbis out there. I want you to learn. I want you to go through everything. Then you should know so much. He was right. Totally different level of knowledge. But I still have this, thing. I want to give to others a different thing. So he told me a few nights a week, you want to go here, go there, give some classes, okay. Didn't have an issue with that. Didn't have an issue with that. But he said, your job is to sit and learn. That's your job. You want to go in afterwards, fine. You want to teach others, fine. Get grounded in knowledge. So it's been ingrained in me, not just from him, from others also. You get a certain level of knowledge, then, you're off and running. You're working on others. Yeah, some others come to you, it's one thing. Right? Others would say, and I've heard this been said, I disagree with it, but I've heard it been said, that if you have any level of knowledge at all, you can give it over to someone else. Right? There is what to be said for such a thing. I'm not going to say none. There is what to be said for such a thing. Yeah. I think a person needs to be a little bit more grounded before they do it. Yeah. I'm not saying they have to have world-class knowledge. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I just brought the example of Rabbi Uri Zohar, that they hid him away for years and years. So he wouldn't get involved in this before he was ready. But he was doing something else. Just to have influence on others, you don't have to have world-class knowledge. A person can have basic knowledge. Yeah. Look, it's like I always say, people, when it comes to social media, which I think people waste a lot of time on, that, I would say like this, if a person want to make videos, whatever, put things up and, try and strengthen people, that way, I would say 20 minutes a day maximum, half an hour maximum. Whatever other time you have to learn, focus on your own learning. The person say, isn't that selfish? No. You have an obligation to build yourself up also. I remember when I was, involved in real estate, people knew they couldn't get a hold of me before 11:30 in the morning, no matter what. So I learned in the morning, right? In other words, got to learn on your own also. Got to be for your own knowledge also. Doesn't mean you can't help others, right? Doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean, you have to know all kinds of things to be able to do that. Problem is, you don't want to lose focus. Losing focus is bad. The reason losing focus is bad is because you get sidetracked. It's very easy to get sidetracked. I've seen it more and more. People come out of Christianity. What's the first thing they want to do once they figure out the path they need to go on? What's the first thing they want to do? They want to help others. That's not a bad thing. They want to help others, whether counter missionary, doing with Noahides, other things. It's very good. Because now, they have knowledge. They have knowledge coming out of the church and this and that. They can help. They can guide people from what they saw and now where they're going and whatever. That's very good. And maybe it should be done. But at what price? At what price? If a person's interested in conversion, that should be the most important thing. If the question, if they went with Noahide to learn in Hebrew, learn Hebrew first. Yeah. Might say maybe try and do both. Okay. Yeah. Or know what your schedule is, how much time you're going to learn, and set aside a certain amount of time for that. But if it's about conversion and wanting to learn, your learning comes first. That is no question. You want to help others? It's a good thing. I'm not going to say not. I think people get carried away though. I see someone like I always say, making videos, the person can't even read Hebrew for goodness sakes. Can barely, butchers every Hebrew word. Yeah. Sometimes I want to get a good laugh, I'll watch it. Yeah. Because, it just reinforces the point. Why are you making videos? You're butchering every Hebrew word. Right? So Kaufman would say, go back, learn, forget making videos. You want to make a video, 20 minutes. I'll give you 20 minutes a day. I'll be generous. Half an hour a day maximum. That's it. You want to do it, fine. Other times, just sit and learn. Listen to other people, learn on your own, whatever it is. Whatever it is, get the requisite knowledge, do not get distracted. I'm not saying it's a bad thing here. Yeah, but if you can get distracted. Yeah, my Rebbe grounded me straight away. Don't get distracted. He didn't say that language, but he said, your obligation is sit and learn. He said, I promise you, you want to go out, you go out like fire. You want to teach and this and that, but get the knowledge. Don't be here, there, everywhere trying to, save the world and all that. That's great. Get the requisite knowledge first. Once you do that, you have influence on others. Can you take a small amount of time on the side and do that? Sure. Right? That'll make you feel good because, you're using your knowledge. You're trying to help others. Very good. Doesn't come at the expense of the ultimate goal. Whether, it's to learn what it means to be a Noahide, right? For conversion, people lose sight of the goal. And it's very easy to get sidetracked. Very, very easy. And it could be a person not meant to convert, so do these other things. Okay. Yeah. The first thing is, now we have this knowledge. We want to run with it. Very good. Yeah, but you got to get grounded. You got to be grounded in that knowledge. Doesn't mean you can't give it over. Not saying no. The first opinion will say, give it over now. You're able to do it. You have a certain level of knowledge. Yeah, not a problem. Right? You're able to give over. Fine. I'm not in favor of that. I'm not saying the person can't do it. Right? I just think people are going to get distracted, by doing it. And that's not what their focus should be. I have the same issue. Same exact issue. I've been learning for a few years already. Yeah. I've been learning for a number of years before that. Okay. I don't have the requisite knowledge necessarily to do what I'm doing now, for sure. Right? We said fine. Yeah, 1 night a week, 2 nights a week, want to do this, that, fine. You want to get it out of your system, so to speak. Okay. Yeah, but the main focus is for yourself. Right? It's to learn and to master things. That's the main focus. Once you lose the focus to a certain extent, that's going to be a problem. Right? 100%, that's going to be a problem. Right? Or do videos for yourself as a way of learning. It could be. It could be, it could be for yourself. But, if a person puts a video out there, they put a video out there and a lot of people see it and they get a lot of good feedback. It's also part of the evil inclination. Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. They can feel good about themselves and they get it out there and whatever. What's that going to prompt them to do? Maybe more. Do more research, do this, do that. They'll make more. Okay. Yeah, what's the problem with that? You get sidetracked. You easily get sidetracked. Because you're going to say, if I'm good at it, let me continue. Let me do more. Yeah, I have that also. I got into things, this and that. I'm still learning every day, right? All day long. Still, I had this itch for, when you see success to a certain extent. You got, if I didn't love learning so much, then yeah, I would have gone out much earlier. Yeah, but I have this thing in my mind. You want to accomplish, you want to finish, you want to this, you want to that. Okay, but it was a struggle. It was a definite struggle. right? And it's one thing, person doesn't have talent or whatever, or they don't see success. But when you see success, also part of the evil inclinations, yeah, go do more, go do some of this, but then you don't get what you need in other ways. Yeah, and then you get shortchanged, and you did it to yourself because you got all excited and this and that. It's true. I'm not saying I'm not saying a person can't do that, but the question is, what does it lead to? Yeah, and what it can lead to is you shortchange your own growth. And that's not good. That comes with a lot of problems. But if the person's a woman, it's a different issue. She doesn't need that kind of know, right? It's a different type of thing. She's not commanded to learn. She has to know things that she has to know. But in general, for guys, it's very different. Yeah, his learning is totally different. So that's a different issue. That's a different issue. Could Rabbi Ori Zohar, blessed memory, could he had an impact, much earlier after he became religious? Sure. That type of personality. Not the knowledge per se, but he had a certain level of knowledge. Right? After a few years, he could have done it. Right? They hit him away. They didn't want him to get sidetracked. They wanted him to get, tremendous amount of knowledge, before he did it. And, then after the fact, he didn't want to do it anyway. He just wanted to sit and learn. He didn't want to be part of that world anymore. But he had no choice. Right? Torah giants of generation told him, okay, this is your obligation. This is what you have to do. You have to go out there. He didn't want to do it, but he listened. He's very successful. Right? And he listened. But, it's after a certain amount of time of learning. I've seen, a number of times people go out way too early. They destroy the learning the process. Or what they could have been. Maybe you're going to say, well, maybe they couldn't sit and learn for so many years. Okay. Yeah, but if a person could have, and they shortchanged their learning, it's bad. A woman doesn't apply to. Yeah. So, have influence on others, very good. I would still say get a certain level of knowledge for yourself and then do that. Can you do it at the same time? Potentially, yeah. But you want to focus on yourself first, before worrying about others. You have much more of an effect, for sure. Yeah, that's what I would say on that. And I guess the next part of the Mishnah, which is about a wicked neighbor, that I'll hold off till next week. So any other questions? Anyone have any other questions? Someone asks, it's bad for a woman to know more than she's supposed to. It depends on what expense. If a person's married and she's got kids, yeah. So, she should be learning. Everybody should be learning. There's no question. But she's got to make that the main focus. She's got other obligations. So right now I say I don't have those obligations. Okay. So, whatever a woman can learn, that's good. I'm not saying, a woman shouldn't have a certain level of knowledge. They should, but, eventually it's gonna come to a head because, usually people are married, married and kids, their kids gonna come first more than the learning, for sure. That 100% for sure. Doesn't mean they shouldn't take classes, they shouldn't listen to classes. Yeah, but they're gonna have other obligations. And once you have other obligations, it's a different story. That's a totally different story. But if you don't have those obligations, you have an opportunity to learn. Very good. You can learn to chesed, do other things. For sure. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to stop here. Do this every Saturday, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. Tomorrow, Book of Leviticus chapter 16. That will be 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. My YouTube channel, I have Torah Portion of the Week, Q&As, Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, controversial issues. So you can take a look at all that. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. We're having a good end of the day, or beginning of the day, middle of the day.